The Vorthan Empire had conquered 47 worlds across 3 star systems. Their military commanders had never known defeat. Their soldiers stood 8 feet tall, covered in thick gray scales that could stop most projectile weapons. Their plasma rifles could melt through steel walls. Their warships blocked out the sun when they arrived. When they came to Earth, they expected another easy victory. Commander Zethrak stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the blue planet below. His second officer, Krixval, brought him the initial scans. "Primitive species," Krixval said. "They have only recently discovered space travel. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles. No plasma technology, no energy shields. Their largest military forces are scattered across different territories. They do not even have a unified planetary government." Zethrak made a sound that passed for laughter among his kind. "Another simple conquest. We will have this world secured within 3 planetary rotations." The Vorthan fleet descended through Earth's atmosphere on a Tuesday morning. They chose to land their main forces in the large flat areas of what humans called North America. The open terrain would give their heavy vehicles room to move. Their troops spread out across the plains and began their march toward the nearest population centers. The first day went exactly as the Vorthan expected. Human military forces tried to meet them in open battle. Tanks rolled across the fields. Jets screamed through the sky. Soldiers dug trenches and set up defensive positions. The Vorthan crushed them all. Their plasma weapons burned through tank armor like it was paper. Their anti-aircraft batteries swatted jets out of the sky before the human pilots could even get close enough to fire. Their ground troops marched forward in perfect formation, their scale armor shrugging off rifle bullets. By the end of the first day, the human military in the region had been destroyed. The Vorthan had not lost a single soldier. Zethrak received the reports with satisfaction. "Begin occupation protocols," he ordered. "Establish control points in all major population centers. Round up the human leaders and bring them to me for processing." The second day also went well. Vorthan troops entered the cities. They set up checkpoints on all major roads. They took over government buildings and broadcast stations. The humans fled before them or hid in their homes. "Commander," Krixval reported that evening, "we have established control over a territory covering approximately 2 million square kilometers. Human resistance has effectively ended." "Of course it has," Zethrak said. "Their military is destroyed. What can unarmed civilians do against us?" He would learn the answer to that question very soon. On the third day, a Vorthan patrol was moving through a human city called Denver. 20 soldiers in full combat gear, led by a junior officer named Braxton. They were conducting a standard sweep, looking for weapons and identifying potential troublemakers. The street they walked down was empty. The humans had learned to stay inside when Vorthan patrols came through. Broken windows and abandoned cars lined the road. Everything was quiet. Then Braxton heard a small sound, a click. He looked down and saw that one of his soldiers had stepped on something. A thin wire stretched across the road, almost invisible against the gray concrete. The explosion came from the building on their left. Not one explosion, but many. The humans had packed containers full of metal scraps and explosive chemicals. When the wire was pulled, it triggered them all at once. The blast killed 3 Vorthan soldiers instantly. Pieces of metal flew through the air and found gaps in the scale armor of 4 more. They fell screaming. Before Braxton could give an order, gunfire erupted from the buildings on both sides of the street. Not the rifle fire they had faced before. This was something different. The humans were shooting from windows and rooftops, from behind walls and inside drainage pipes. They fired a few shots and then disappeared before the Vorthan could return fire. Braxton lost 6 more soldiers before his patrol made it to cover. When he tried to pursue the attackers, he found only empty rooms and open back doors. The humans had vanished like ghosts. That night, Zethrak received the first reports of what the humans called guerrilla warfare. A supply convoy was ambushed on a mountain road. The humans had blocked the front and back of the convoy with fallen trees, then attacked from the slopes above. They used weapons that fired explosive projectiles in a high arc. By the time Vorthan reinforcements arrived, the attackers were gone, and 12 Vorthan soldiers were dead. A command post was attacked in the middle of the night. The humans came through the sewer system underneath the building. They planted explosive devices and escaped the same way they came. The explosion killed 20 Vorthan and destroyed valuable communication equipment. A patrol vehicle was driving through what the humans called Kansas when a massive explosion underneath the road threw it into the air. The humans had buried bombs under the pavement and waited for the right moment to trigger them. "Commander," Krixval said, his voice uncertain, "we lost 47 soldiers today, and we did not see the enemy even once." Zethrak stared at the reports in confusion. This did not make sense. The human military was destroyed. These attacks were not being carried out by soldiers. They were being carried out by ordinary humans, farmers, factory workers, teachers, old men and young women. "They are not fighting like soldiers," he said slowly. "No, Commander, they are not." In the city of Denver, a woman named Sarah Chen gathered her resistance cell in the basement of an abandoned restaurant. There were 12 of them. Before the invasion, they had been nurses and electricians, store clerks and construction workers. Now they were fighters. Sarah spread a hand-drawn map on the table. "The Vorthan are setting up a new checkpoint here, on the corner of 14th and Market. They're using it to control access to the water treatment plant." A large man named Marcus studied the map. "How many guards?" 6 during the day, 4 at night. They rotate every 8 hours. "The night shift is the target," Marcus said. 4 is manageable." Sarah nodded. "We hit them at 3 in the morning, in and out, no heroics. The goal is to show them they're not safe anywhere at any time." An older man named Howard raised his hand. He had been a history teacher before the invasion. "I've been reading about other guerrilla campaigns. Vietnam, Afghanistan, the American Revolution. The key is patience. We don't need to win battles. We just need to make the occupation so costly that they give up." "How long did those campaigns take?" a young woman named Alina asked. Howard was quiet for a moment. "Years, sometimes decades." The room was silent. They all understood what that meant. Many of them would not live to see the end of this war, but they also understood something else, something the Vorthan did not yet comprehend. Humans were very, very good at this kind of fighting. For thousands of years they had fought each other this way. When a weaker force faced a stronger enemy, they did not stand in open battle and accept defeat. They hid. They ambushed. They made the enemy pay for every inch of ground in blood. They turned their own homes into weapons. The Vorthan had conquered 47 worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. And they were about to learn what that meant. 6 weeks after the invasion began, Commander Zethrak stood in his command center and stared at the casualty reports. The numbers made no sense. In 6 weeks of occupation, the Vorthan had lost over 2,000 soldiers, not to organized military forces, not to advanced weapons. They had lost them to bombs hidden in trash cans, to poison in water supplies, to snipers who fired once and disappeared, to vehicles that exploded without warning, to buildings that collapsed in the middle of the night. "We control nothing," Zethrak said quietly. "Commander," Krixval stood beside him, waiting. "We control nothing," Zethrak repeated louder now. "We have soldiers in every major city. We have checkpoints on every major road. We have destroyed their military completely, and yet we control nothing." He swept his arm across the holographic map of Earth. "Show me a territory we truly control. Show me a region where our soldiers can move safely. Show me a single area where the humans have accepted our rule." Krixval was silent. There was no such area. The humans had not stopped fighting. They had just changed how they fought. In every city, resistance cells operated in secret. They met in basements and abandoned buildings. They communicated through coded messages passed by hand. They planned attacks with simple tools and homemade weapons. In the countryside, farmers hid fighters in their barns and cellars. They fed false information to Vorthan patrols. They reported troop movements to the resistance through networks of runners and hidden radios. Children carried messages through streets where Vorthan soldiers were afraid to patrol alone. Old women poisoned food and water meant for Vorthan supply depots. Mechanics sabotaged vehicles when they were brought in for repair. Every human was a potential enemy, and the Vorthan could not tell which ones until it was too late. Zethrak had tried everything. He had ordered harsh punishments for any human found aiding the resistance. He had destroyed entire buildings suspected of hiding fighters. He had taken hostages and threatened to kill them if the attacks continued. None of it worked. If anything, it made the resistance grow stronger. For every human the Vorthan killed, 2 more joined the fight. The harsh punishments did not create fear. They created anger. Every destroyed building became a symbol of Vorthan cruelty. Every hostage became a martyr. The humans have a saying, Krixval said carefully. Cut off 1 head and 2 more grow in its place. I believe it refers to one of their mythological creatures. What is your point? My point, Commander, is that we cannot win this war by killing humans. There are too many of them, and killing them only creates more enemies. Zethrak turned to face his second officer. Then what do you suggest? That we simply leave? That we admit defeat to a species of primitives? I suggest we consider what victory would actually look like. Even if we kill half the population, the remaining billions will still fight us. They do not need sophisticated weapons. They can make explosives from cleaning chemicals. They can make weapons from pipes and springs. They can fight us with rocks and fire if they have to. No species should be this stubborn, Zethrak growled. And yet they are. In a small town in what the humans called Montana, a group of teenagers was learning how to make explosives from fertilizer. Their teacher was a former mining engineer named Paul. He had lost his wife and son in the first wave of the invasion. The key is the ratio, Paul explained, drawing diagrams in the dirt floor of the barn where they met. Too much of one ingredient and it won't work. Too much of another and it might go off while you're building it. Pay attention. I'm not going to repeat this. The teenagers watched with serious faces. The youngest was 14. The oldest was 17. Before the invasion, they had worried about homework and dating and college applications. Now they were learning to build bombs. One of them, a girl named Jessica, raised her hand. What about the Vorthan armor? Even if we hit them with an explosion, their scales protect them. Paul nodded. Good question. We've learned that their scale armor has gaps under the arms, behind the knees, at the neck. If you can hit those spots with shrapnel, you can hurt them. But honestly, killing Vorthan soldiers isn't really the goal. It's not. No, the goal is to make them afraid, to make them understand that they're not safe anywhere. Every time they leave their bases, they have to worry. Every time they eat food, they have to wonder if it's poisoned. Every time they drive down a road, they have to look for bombs. That fear wears them down. It makes them make mistakes. It breaks their morale. Paul looked at each of the teenagers in turn. We probably won't win this war ourselves, but our children might, or our grandchildren. We just have to keep fighting until then. Back in Denver, Sarah Chen was planning something bigger. Her cell had grown from 12 to almost 50. They had made contact with other cells throughout the city. A coordinated attack was possible now. The Vorthan have a supply depot on the east side of the city, she explained at a meeting. They use it to store weapons and ammunition. If we can destroy it, it will hurt their operations in the whole region. Marcus studied the hand-drawn map. Security. Heavy, at least 50 guards. Motion sensors, patrols every hour. That's a lot, Elena said. More than we've ever hit before. We won't attack it directly, Sarah said. We'll draw the guards away. Teams in 3 other parts of the city will launch diversionary attacks. The Vorthen will send reinforcements. When the depot is weakened, we strike. That requires a lot of coordination, Howard pointed out. A lot of things can go wrong. Yes, but the payoff is worth it, and we need to show the Vorthen that we're not just a nuisance, we're a real threat. The plan was set for the following week. Messages were passed through the network. Other cells prepared their diversionary attacks. Weapons were gathered. Explosives were built. On the night of the attack, everything went exactly as planned. At midnight, explosions rocked the western part of the city. A Vorthen patrol came under fire from multiple directions. The aliens called for reinforcements. Troops began moving away from the depot. At 1 in the morning, the southern attack began. A Vorthen checkpoint was destroyed by a bomb hidden in a crashed car. More reinforcements were called. At 2 in the morning, the northern attack started. Snipers targeted Vorthen officers. Buildings were set on fire. The aliens were now chasing threats in 3 different directions. At 3 in the morning, Sarah and her team struck the depot. They came through a drainage tunnel that ran underneath the perimeter wall. The humans had spent weeks mapping these tunnels. The Vorthen had never thought to check them. 20 fighters emerged inside the depot walls. The remaining guards were caught completely off guard. In the chaos of the diversionary attacks, no one had expected a direct assault. The fighting was brief and brutal. The humans could not match the Vorthen in open combat, but in the dark, in close quarters, with surprise on their side, they could do damage. 6 Vorthen guards were killed before the rest realized what was happening. Sarah's team did not try to hold the depot. They set their explosive charges and retreated back through the tunnels. 5 minutes later, the depot exploded. The blast could be seen from across the city. The shock wave broke windows for blocks in every direction. When the Vorthen finally arrived in force, they found only burning ruins and the bodies of their comrades. The attackers were gone. Zethrak received the news at dawn. His face was unreadable as he listened to the report. 40,000 units of ammunition, Krixval said. 200 plasma rifles. 3 armored vehicles, all destroyed. Casualties. 26 dead, 15 wounded. Zethrak closed his eyes. This was not war as he understood it. This was something else. Something his military training had not prepared him for. The humans have a word for this, he said slowly. Insurgency, a war fought by the people themselves, not by armies, by everyone. Yes, Commander. How do you fight an entire population? Krixval did not answer. He did not have an answer to give. 3 months into the occupation, the Vorthen Empire sent reinforcements. 10,000 additional soldiers arrived on transport ships. New equipment was deployed. New strategies were implemented. None of it made any difference. The human resistance had grown into something the Vorthen could not understand. It was not an army. It had no commanders, no headquarters, no chain of command. It was a movement, an idea. It spread from person to person, from city to city, from country to country. In Europe, resistance fighters destroyed a Vorthen communication tower. In Asia, assassins killed a Vorthen regional commander. In South America, entire towns simply refused to cooperate with the occupation. They hid food. They destroyed infrastructure before the Vorthen could use it. They made the invaders fight for every resource. The Vorthen soldiers were wearing down. They had been trained to fight wars that lasted weeks or months. This war had no end in sight. Every day brought new attacks, new losses, new frustrations. Morale was collapsing. A young Vorthen soldier named Drektor sat in a bunker in what the humans called Chicago. He had been on Earth for 2 months. In that time, He had lost 7 members of his original unit, not in glorious battle, in ambushes and explosions and attacks that came from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. "I don't understand them," he said to his squad mate Vornkel. "We are stronger than they are. Our weapons are better. Our armor is better. How can they keep fighting?" Vornkel was older. He had served in 4 previous campaigns. "Because they have nothing to lose," he said quietly. "We conquered their world. We killed their families. We destroyed their lives. What more can we do to them? They are not afraid of death anymore. That makes them very dangerous." "But surely some of them want peace. Some of them must want to surrender." "Some do, but enough of them don't. And the ones who don't will keep fighting, forever if they have to." Drektor shook his head. "No species can sustain this kind of resistance. They will tire eventually." Vornkel looked at him with something like pity. "The humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They have fought over land and resources and beliefs. They have fought wars that lasted generations. Their history is written in blood. Compared to what they have done to each other, what we are doing to them is nothing." He paused. "We thought we were the warriors, but these creatures, they were made for war." In the command center, Zethrak was having a similar conversation with representatives from the Vorthan High Council. Their faces appeared on the holographic display, looking down at him with displeasure. "The conquest was supposed to be complete within 1 planetary rotation," the senior council member said. "It has been 3 months. Explain yourself, Commander." Zethrak chose his words carefully. "The humans are not fighting a conventional war, Counselor. They use tactics we have never encountered before. They hide among civilians. They attack and retreat before we can respond. They make weapons from common materials. They turn every building, every vehicle, every object into a potential threat. Then destroy the buildings, destroy the vehicles, destroy whatever they use against you. We have tried. It doesn't stop them. They adapt. They find new ways to attack. And every action we take to suppress them creates more resistance. When we destroy their homes, they fight harder. When we kill their people, their neighbors join the fight." The council member leaned forward. "Are you telling me that the mighty Vorthan Empire cannot control a single primitive world?" "I am telling you that this world is not like the others we have conquered. These creatures do not accept defeat. They do not submit. They will fight us until the last one of them is dead, and there are 8 billion of them." The council was silent. 8 billion was a number that even the Vorthan found staggering. "What do you recommend, Commander?" Zethrak took a deep breath. "We have 2 choices. We can commit to total genocide. Kill every human on the planet. It would take years. It would cost millions of Vorthan lives. And we would inherit a ruined world worth nothing. And the second choice. We withdraw. We admit that this world is not worth the cost of holding it. We leave the humans to their planet and find easier conquests elsewhere." The council members exchanged glances. Neither option was acceptable. The Vorthan had never committed genocide on this scale, and they had certainly never retreated from a conquest. "There must be another way," the senior council member said. "If there is, I have not found it." Back in Denver, Sarah Chen was reading a captured Vorthan document. One of her fighters had taken it from a dead officer. It had taken weeks to translate, but the contents were worth the effort. "They're losing," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "They don't know what to do with us." Howard read over her shoulder. "Their morale is collapsing. Their soldiers are afraid to leave their bases. They're requesting permission to reduce their occupation zone." "They thought this would be easy," Marcus said. "They thought we would just surrender." They didn't understand what they were getting into. Sarah looked up at her friends, her comrades, her fellow fighters. Every invasion force that has tried to occupy a hostile population has learned this lesson. The British in America, the French in Spain, the Germans in Yugoslavia, the Soviets in Afghanistan, the Americans in Vietnam and Iraq. You can't hold land if the people on it want you gone, Howard agreed. Military power alone is not enough. You need the population to cooperate, and we will never cooperate. Sarah nodded. So we keep fighting. We keep making them pay. We make this occupation so expensive, so bloody, so exhausting that they finally give up and go home. How long will that take? Elena asked. As long as it takes, generations if necessary. We pass the fight to our children. They pass it to their children. We never stop. We never surrender. We never give up. The others nodded. They understood. This was not a war that would be won in a single battle or a single year. It was a war of will, a war of endurance, and humans were very, very good at endurance. The Vorthen were about to learn that the hard way. 6 months after the invasion, the Vorthen Empire made a decision. They would not commit to genocide, but they would not withdraw either. Instead, they would try a new strategy. They would make peace with the humans. A delegation was sent to make contact with human leaders, not the resistance fighters, but the civilians who had cooperated with the occupation. Collaborators, the resistance called them, but they were also the only humans the Vorthen could talk to. The message was simple. The Vorthen would grant limited autonomy to human communities. They would reduce their military presence. They would allow humans to govern themselves, as long as they paid tribute and recognized Vorthen authority. In exchange, the humans would stop fighting. The offer was presented to human leaders across the planet. Some accepted. They were tired of war. They had lost family members. They wanted peace, even an imperfect peace. But many more refused. In Denver, Sarah Chen received news of the offer with contempt. They want us to accept slavery in exchange for peace, she said. They take our world and then offer to let us run it for them, as long as we give them what they want. Some people are accepting, Howard pointed out. In Europe, several cities have agreed to the terms. Then they've sold out humanity for a few years of comfort. The Vorthen will not honor any agreement. The moment we stop fighting, they'll tighten their grip again, and then we'll have to start over from nothing. So we keep fighting, Marcus said, even against humans who want peace. We don't fight the humans who want peace. We just don't stop fighting the Vorthen. The resistance continues. The attacks continue, until every alien is off our planet. The offer of peace divided humanity. Some communities laid down their arms. Others fought on. The Vorthen tried to play the two groups against each other, rewarding cooperation and punishing resistance. It didn't work. The resistance had grown too strong. Too many humans had lost too much to ever accept alien rule. And every day that the occupation continued, more people joined the fight. In the 8th month, a critical turning point occurred. A Vorthen transport ship was preparing to leave Earth. It carried wounded soldiers and civilian supplies. It was supposed to be safe. The humans did not have anti-aircraft weapons capable of reaching it. But the humans had spent months studying Vorthen technology. They had captured equipment. They had learned how it worked, and they had built something new. The missile was crewed by Vorthen standards. It was made from parts salvaged from destroyed Vorthen vehicles, combined with human engineering. It should not have worked. But it did. The transport ship exploded in the upper atmosphere. The fireball was visible from the ground. Every human who saw it understood what it meant. The Vorthen were not safe anywhere. Zethrak received the news in silence. His flagship was now the last truly safe place on or near Earth. Even the orbital stations had been attacked by human suicide teams using captured shuttles. They shot down a transport, Krixval said. They have anti-aircraft capability now. I saw the report. Commander, we cannot protect our supply lines anymore. If they can hit our transports, they can hit anything. We will starve before we break them. Zethrak said nothing. He knew his second officer was right. We should leave, Krixval continued. Before we lose more ships, before we lose more soldiers, this war cannot be won. The Council will never accept defeat. Then the Council should come here and fight this war themselves. They sit in comfort across the stars and tell us to do the impossible. Let them see what we face. Let them walk the streets of a human city and feel the fear of attack from every shadow. Zethrak finally turned to face him. You speak dangerously, Krixval. I speak the truth. We have lost 4,000 soldiers. We have lost dozens of vehicles and aircraft. We have lost 2 ships, and the humans are only getting stronger. How many more must die before we admit that this was a mistake? The question hung in the air. Zethrak did not have an answer. On the ground, the human resistance celebrated the destruction of the transport ship, but they did not celebrate for long. They had too much work to do. Sarah Chen called a meeting of all the cell leaders in the Denver area. More than 200 people crowded into an underground parking structure. They represented thousands of fighters across the city and surrounding regions. We've hurt them, Sarah said, but we haven't beaten them, not yet. They're still here, they're still killing us, they're still occupying our world. What's next? Someone called out. We hit them harder. We've proven we can shoot down their ships. Now we need to make them afraid to fly at all. We need to make them afraid to drive, afraid to walk, afraid to sleep. We're already doing that, Marcus pointed out. Then we do more. We coordinate on a global scale, every resistance group on Earth working together. We plan attacks that hit them everywhere at once. We make them understand that they cannot hold this planet. Not now, not ever. The assembled fighters nodded. They were tired and hungry and scared. Many of them had lost friends and family to the war, but they were not beaten. They would never be beaten. There's something else, Howard said. He stepped forward to stand beside Sarah. I've been in contact with people who have accessed Vorthan communications. The aliens are talking about withdrawal. Their commanders are arguing with their council. Their soldiers are losing hope. A murmur ran through the crowd. They're breaking, Howard continued. We just need to push a little harder, a few more months of this. Maybe a year and they'll go. They'll leave our planet and never come back. And if they don't leave, someone asked, what if they decide to just kill all of us? Then we make them pay for every life they take. We make the cost so high that they can never forget what they did here. And we trust that somewhere, someday, our story will inspire others to resist them. Sarah stepped forward again. I won't lie to you. Many of us won't live to see victory, but our children will, or our grandchildren. Humanity will survive. We have survived everything else our history has thrown at us. Ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters. We survived each other. We will survive the Vorthan. She raised her fist. For Earth, for humanity, for freedom. 200 voices echoed her cry. The sound rose up from the underground structure and seemed to shake the very ground. Above in orbit, Zethrak felt a chill run down his spine. He did not know why. But he was beginning to understand that coming to Earth had been the worst mistake the Vorthan Empire had ever made. 1 year after the invasion began, the Vorthan High Council convened an emergency session. The topic, the Earth Campaign. The numbers were damning. 5,000 Vorthan soldiers dead, hundreds of vehicles destroyed, 6 ships lost. The cost of the occupation had exceeded the value of anything Earth could provide by a factor of 50. And the humans were still fighting. Reports came in from across the planet. Coordinated attacks had become common. The resistance had developed sophisticated communication networks. They had manufactured weapons from captured Vorthan technology. They had even begun launching attacks on orbital stations. No Vorthan was safe on Earth. Not in their bases, not in their vehicles, not in their ships. The humans attacked day and night in every weather, in every terrain. They came from underground and from rooftops. They came in groups of 2 or in groups of 200. They never stopped. We have 3 options. the senior council member said. We continue the occupation at its current level and accept ongoing losses. We escalate to total war and attempt to exterminate the human population, or we withdraw. The debate lasted for hours. Military officers argued for escalation. They could not accept that the mighty Vorthan had been defeated by primitives. Civilian administrators argued for withdrawal. The cost was too high and getting higher every day. In the end, the civilian administrators won. The Vorthan would leave Earth, not because they had been defeated militarily, not because the humans had more powerful weapons, but because the humans had something the Vorthan did not understand. Will. The humans simply refused to stop fighting. No matter how many died, no matter how much they suffered, they would not submit. They would not surrender. They would fight until every alien was gone or until they were all dead. And there were too many of them to kill. The withdrawal order was transmitted to Zethrak 3 days later. He received it with a mixture of relief and shame. He had failed. The first Vorthan commander in history to lose a campaign. But he was also alive, and his surviving soldiers would be alive. That was something. Begin evacuation procedures, he ordered Krixval. All personnel are to return to the ships within 1 planetary cycle. We leave nothing behind. Yes, Commander, and the humans. Zethrak considered the question. He could order reprisals. He could destroy cities as they left. He could kill as many humans as possible in the time remaining. But what would be the point? It would only prove that the humans had been right to fight. It would only ensure that if the Vorthan ever returned, the resistance would be even fiercer. Leave them, he said finally. Leave them to their world, they earned it. The evacuation took 2 weeks. Vorthan soldiers withdrew from cities and outposts across the planet. They left under constant attack. The humans did not let them go in peace. They hit the retreating forces again and again, punishing them for every day of occupation. 200 more Vorthan died during the withdrawal. But finally, the last transport lifted off. The last warship left orbit. The Vorthan fleet gathered in formation and jumped to hyperspace. Earth was free. In Denver, Sarah Chen watched the ships disappear on a captured Vorthan monitor. Around her, the members of her resistance cell cheered and cried and hugged each other. The war was over. They had won. But Sarah did not cheer. She was thinking about the cost, the millions dead, the cities destroyed, the years of suffering, the children who would grow up with nightmares about alien soldiers. Was it worth it? Elena asked, standing beside her. Sarah thought about the question for a long time. Ask me in 100 years, she finally said. Ask me when we've rebuilt, when we've healed, when the children of today are old and gray and telling their grandchildren about the war. What will we tell them? We'll tell them that when the aliens came, we fought back. We'll tell them that we were not soldiers or warriors. We were farmers and teachers and nurses and mechanics. We were ordinary people. But when we had to, we became fighters. She turned to face Elena. We'll tell them that humans do not surrender. We do not submit. We do not accept defeat. No matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how hopeless the odds, we fight. And if they come back? Sarah smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then we'll do it all again. We'll fight them in the cities and the mountains and the forests. We'll fight them on every continent and every island. We'll fight them until they leave or until we're all dead. She looked up at the sky where the Vorthan ships had been just minutes before. And now they know that. Now everyone in the galaxy knows that. Earth is not an easy conquest. Humans are not a species that surrenders. We're the species that invented guerrilla warfare. Across the planet, similar scenes were playing out. People emerged from hiding. They embraced each other in the streets. They wept for the dead and celebrated the victory. It would take decades to rebuild. Some cities were ruins. Some regions were wastelands. The death toll was estimated at over 100 million. But humanity survived. And more than survived. Humanity had faced an enemy with superior technology and superior firepower, and they had won. Not through strength or weapons, but through will and determination and the simple refusal to give up. The Vorthan Empire would never forget what happened on Earth. The story spread across the galaxy. Species that the Vorthan had conquered heard about the planet that fought back. The planet that made the mighty Vorthan flee. Some of those species began to wonder, if the humans could resist, could they? On a dozen worlds, small sparks of rebellion began to glow. The Vorthan Empire had come to Earth seeking an easy conquest. Instead, they had shown the galaxy that resistance was possible. They had proven that even the mightiest empire could be defeated. And all because they had underestimated one small blue planet and its stubborn, violent, endlessly creative inhabitants. Years later, when historians wrote about the invasion, they struggled to explain how it had happened. How had a species without interstellar travel defeated the greatest military power in the known galaxy? The answer was simple, really. Humans had been fighting each other for tens of thousands of years. They had developed every possible form of warfare: open battles, sieges, naval combat, air combat, and when those failed, guerrilla warfare. The art of the weak defeating the strong through patience, cunning, and sheer stubborn refusal to surrender. The Vorthan had never faced anything like it. Their other conquests had been against species that accepted defeat when they lost their militaries, species that surrendered when the odds became hopeless. Humans were not like that. Humans kept fighting, always, forever. It was their greatest strength and their greatest flaw. The same stubbornness that had caused countless human wars had now saved their species from alien domination. And as the years passed and humanity rebuilt and reached for the stars themselves, they carried that lesson with them. Never surrender, never submit, never stop fighting. Because sometimes, against all odds, the ones who refuse to quit are the ones who win. The Vorthan had learned that lesson the hard way. And the galaxy would never forget it.